in a big way?
I think the biggest one was becoming pro-life, because I wasn't. And I think I've had things where I've changed my perspective on things as I learn more information, as I have more experience, but nothing stands out like becoming pro-life was. Like, that's like a major, like, complete 180 shift. And I think that was just, I was raised in, splitting my time between Tennessee and Los Angeles, and I was, in the Hollywood world, and I just saw one thing, and I was raised by a mom who was very libertarian, and we never really talked about abortion, but it made sense to me. It's like, no, why would I want the government to have any control over my body? Like, I was raised to think that the government should not impact our personal lives. We want them as far away from us as possible. So this seems completely ridiculous. Like, I really only saw the issue from that perspective. I wasn't looking at it as a form of female empowerment or anything else. It was strictly like, man, that feels like overreach. That's ridiculous. Like, I can do whatever I want. And then my mind started to change when I went to college, and I saw that it was more of a cultural issue than I had ever known. Like, I was in a sorority, and I met girls who were on their, like, third or fourth abortion. And it was just something I was like, yeah, I'm just going to go. And I was like, wait, this is not, like, safe, legal, and rare that I, when I would read, like, think pieces from Reason magazine and things like that. That's not what they were talking about here. Like, this is a totally different issue when you get out into the real world and you look at young women. And young men, but really I was faced with young women. And also seeing the issue as a form of female empowerment and as this, like, feminist rallying cry that I can just go sleep with whoever I want with no repercussions and let a guy, like, use my body, and then I'll just go, discard the consequences. And that was incredibly difficult for me to reconcile because, I was raised with understanding the importance of personal responsibility. Like, that's the number one thing in our house growing up. My mom likes to say that she raised us based on the principle of, I guess it's like natural consequence parenting is what they call it, where you have to take responsibility for everything. Like, if you make a choice, you are going to deal with the consequences, good or bad, and that is your punishment, basically. Like, she's not going to go out of her way to punish you in some crazy way. It's like, no, you will just have to deal with the consequences of what you did. And I take that with me in my personal life outside of the home. I mean, it's just like it grew outside of my childhood, obviously, because that was such an important principle that I was raised with. And so I was looking around the world that I was in. I was like, none of these women are taking responsibility. They're intentionally, like, going out to these frat parties and sleeping around and not being on birth control, not using a frickin' condom that is so easy to acquire. And then they're just going to go and get their third abortion and act like it's nothing. And I was like, okay, so now this is an issue of a lack of personal responsibility. And so that is the first thing that really started to change my mind. And of course, you can make the argument about rape and incest, but that makes up 1% of abortion cases. And so it's like, we can have that as a totally separate conversation. And that's a very nuanced conversation. I think the entire abortion conversation should be one that is had with a lot of grace and a lot of empathy, because it's, I think I see it as black and white, but it's also not really, because these are human lives and that are at stake, and people are often in really awful situations. And I think sometimes people on the right make it hard to have, people on the right and the left make it hard to have those kinds of nuanced conversations because they get so angry and emotional about this issue specifically. But that was the first thing that really started to change my mind, because it was just a lack of responsibility. And then I went home and I started talking to my mom about it, and that's when I learned that my dad had wanted to have me aborted as a baby. And so that just completely blew it open, because then suddenly I had, like, a personal tie to it, where I was like, oh, I couldn't, like, there's a possibility that I couldn't be here. And I think that, my life has such value, and I'm so important to this family, and it was just, like, so mind-boggling to me that could all just be taken away. And then it just continued spiraling to the point where it ended. So that was, like, the last biggest, like, complete 180 on a policy.
So I'm curious, you talked about that on a recent podcast with Sean Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
And you were talking about the relationship you had with your dad,
mm-hmm.
and some of the things that you might want to tell him. Did your dad reach out to you after that podcast about those?
I don't think he's listened to it. I'm actually seeing him. I'm seeing him tomorrow. And we're going to talk about it. I think we might talk about it. I'm going to ask him if he'll watch it.
Interesting.
I don't know if he's watched it.
I bet he has. And maybe he just wants to wait in person.
We'll see. But yeah,
That's interesting.
I'll be interested to see how it goes. Because we've
Yeah.
had kind of, like I said on Sean's show, we've had these conversations in like bits and pieces, but they have often been very fraught with emotion. They've come up because of a conflict that is happening. And so I'd really love to be able to have it where it's like, no, we're just, sitting down and talking through it. Because I think that there's something really special that happens when you become an adult. And I also said this on Sean's show, where you start to see your parents as humans, but where they also see you as an adult. And I think that was probably the last thing that needed to happen for my father and I, where it's like, I don't physically need him for anything. There wasn't anything that he held over me. Like, I don't need money. I don't need to, come home on spring break or whatever it might be. It's like, no, we are two fully autonomous, independent people who are going to choose to have this relationship. And I think that that's so powerful. I think that's why marriage is so powerful, because this is like the person you're choosing. This is not somebody, a family that you were born into. It's not blood, but you are choosing this. And I kind of see that in a way with, a relationship that's like my dad's and mine, where I'm making an active choice to try to fix this and make it better. And I think taking away that, like, I need you, or I'm dependent upon you, is really, really helpful in that regard. I think that's the key to first setting boundaries in my mind. Like, why the boundaries have to be in place. And I think people are really great at setting boundaries, but it's hard to know when to kind of like remove the wall. And for me, it's like, have I done the work to put myself in a situation where I feel strong enough, secure enough, financially independent enough to be able to have this relationship and know that, yeah, it might not be perfect, but I can handle it and you can handle it. We're adults now.
Now, you might have noticed that I'm someone who pays close attention to trends, and lately I've been noticing cowboy boots everywhere. It's pretty clear that a great pair of boots isn't just for the ranch anymore. They pair incredibly well with everything from casual outfits to full-on business attire, and that's why I'm excited to announce today's sponsor, Tecovas.
Have you ever wondered if you could pull off boots? I'll tell you what, I absolutely have. Let's be honest, you owe it to yourself to try out Tecovas. Tecovas makes handcrafted Western boots with over 200 meticulous steps for a perfect fit right out of the box. Whether you're a lifelong cowboy or a first-time boot buyer like myself, you'll feel right at home in them.
A great pair of boots really just pulls everything together. With Tecovas, you don't just look put together, you feel put together. And trust me, people notice. And right now, you can get 10% off when you sign up for email and text when you go to tecovas.com/iced. That's TECOVAS.com/ICED. Tecovas.com/iced.
Plus, Tecovas backs every pair with their Best in the West guarantee with free returns and exchanges for 30 days. Seriously, guys, I genuinely recommend Tecovas, and if you think you can't pull off cowboy boots, see for yourself. You might be surprised. Thank you so much to Tecovas for sponsoring this episode.